It began with a handshake. A quick photo opportunity, President Trump with a grin, President Putin stone-faced. And then it was down to business.
Great to be with you.
After the cameras left the room, it was just the two men and their translators, an unprecedented 2-hour off-the-record meeting. They emerged together, the President of the United States standing side by side with the President of Russia, addressing the world, and pointed questions about Russia's interference in America's election.
Do you hold Russia at all accountable for anything in particular?
Yes, I do. I hold both countries responsible. I think that the United States has been foolish. I think we've all been foolish, and I think we're all to blame. There was no collusion at all.
Those comments coming on the heels of last week's grand jury indictment of 12 Russian intelligence officers for their alleged roles in committing cyber crimes to interfere in the 2016 elections.
The indictment charges 12 Russian military officers by name for conspiring to interfere with the 2016 presidential election.
Today, Putin offering his own response to questions of meddling.
Назовите мне хотя бы один факт, который говорит о каком-то сговоре.
And then this offer. He says he would allow Russian authorities to question the 12 indicted officers with Mueller's team present.
Присутствовать на этих допросах. Но тогда в этом случае мы, безусловно...
But he added a condition. Russia must then be allowed to interrogate American intelligence agents. President Trump sounded enthusiastic at the prospect.
And what he did is an incredible offer. He offered to have the people working on the case come and work with their investigators with respect to the 12 people. I think that's an incredible offer. Okay, thank you.
But here was the moment that truly ignited the firestorm today, when President Trump appeared to throw America's intelligence community under the bus.
Would you now, with the whole world watching, tell President Putin, would you denounce what happened in 2016, and would you warn him to never do it again?
My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be. So I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today.
The reaction was swift and furious. Former CIA Director John Brennan calling it, quote, nothing short of treasonous. The current Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coates, handpicked by Trump, stating that the intelligence community has been clear in their assessment of Russian meddling in the 2016 election. The condemnation even coming from members of his own party. John McCain calling the press conference one of the most disgraceful performances by an American president in memory. The Republican chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee unloading on Trump.
The president's comments made us look as a nation more like a pushover.
And staunch Trump ally and friend Newt Gingrich coming down hard on the president as well. President Trump must clarify his statements in Helsinki on our intelligence system and Putin. It is the most serious mistake of his presidency and must be corrected immediately. The conservative press also breaking rank. The Drudge Report running this headline, Putin dominates in hell. Even Fox News following suit.
This has got to be the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed.
It was not a very forceful presentation from President Trump with Putin standing right next to him.
White House officials are keenly aware that this did not go well. This did not go according to plan. What is most striking about what the president said in Helsinki is his words stand in stark contrast to what his own top advisors have been saying.
ABC's Terry Moran right there and describing the energy on the ground at the summit.
Well, that was something else. I don't think any American has ever seen a press conference quite like that from an American president and a Russian leader who is described by all of our allies as an adversary and a dangerous one. President Trump has decided to de-emphasize America's traditional relationships with Western European countries and institutions and get closer to the Kremlin.
Harry Kazianis, Director of Defense Studies at the Center for the National Interest, thought the idea of a summit to improve relations was a good step by President Trump.
We need to have at least a working relationship with them. Doesn't mean we need to be friends or allies or, best friends with Vladimir Putin, who's, let's face it, a dictator. But we do need to have at least open paths to communicate with each other. We need to explain to each other our red lines on different issues.
Although he saw room for improvement today.
You could try to say, well, I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But when multiple U.S. intelligence agencies tell you the Russians tried to hack our election, you have to believe them. It seems like President Trump, for whatever reason, has it in his head that the Russians did not try to hack our election, when all evidence points to quite the contrary. And for the president to deny that for whatever reason, maybe because he's afraid that it might tarnish his election results, maybe he's afraid it might open him up to political attack, is probably the reason he's doing it. And I think today he's made a very, very big mistake.
While there was no official White House agenda published before the summit, Trump telling Fox News' Sean Hannity moments after it ended.
We discussed so many different things, including nuclear, including war and peace, including economic, Syria, Ukraine. I'll tell you that I thought it was a really amazing time. Not about that. I think it's a shame. We're talking about nuclear proliferation. We're talking about Syria and humanitarian aid. We're talking about all of these different things, and we get questions on the witch hunt.
Let's put a fine point on this. For the more conspiratorial among us who watch today's doings in Helsinki and see something dark afoot on the part of President Trump, what do you say to them?
Well, if we're going to go to the darkest side of the room, that he's an asset of the Russians, I think that's very unlikely. But there's a lot of troubling issues well short of that.
We know now at least 13 Trump allies, including some of Donald Trump's innermost circle, his son Don Jr., his son-in-law Jared Kushner, and his campaign manager Paul Manafort, had more than a dozen in-person meetings and numerous other communications with Russians between June of 2015 and Inauguration Day 2017. Most of these meetings and communications were not known until after Trump took office. But if you look at the extent of the ties between people in his orbit and or on his campaign and Russia, I mean, it's, when you take it in totality, it's quite striking. What do you make of it when you look at it all that way, in sum?
Personally, I do think he's compromised to a certain extent through his actions and through the actions of the people around him. I don't know, as a professional intelligence officer, it's hard for me to say that the Russians have had this long-term plan and he's been a plant for a long time. I don't see that, but I do see a lot of unethical and unpatriotic behavior and a lot of almost sort of gangster-like activities that could put him in a difficult place. And certainly the people around him that he's chosen to work with him have made a lot of bad choices.
To date, Robert Mueller's investigation into possible coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia has brought criminal proceedings against 32 people and 3 Russian organizations and sentenced 1 person to prison, all in just 14 months. And just today, in a separate FBI investigation, a Russian gun rights activist linked to the National Rifle Association arrested on charges that she acted as a Kremlin agent. She crossed paths with Donald Trump and his son Don Jr. in July of 2015. Did the Russians need an American partner with whom to collude, given that they were able to get access to all of this information anyway?
In the past, every one of these campaigns, these active measures campaigns that they've done, they have benefited by having people in place, sources and spies that could help them understand and aim and direct the work they've done. In this case, I would suspect there is too. Whether they're specifically tied to the Trump campaign, I don't know. But if the past is any explanation or any protocol, yes, they've always had people on the ground that can help them direct the kind of activity they're doing here.
While Mueller continues his work to find out if anyone lent the Russians a hand in election meddling, on the PR front, it seems Putin got a huge lift today from the American president. On Russian television, he seemed delighted, calling Trump very qualified and an interesting conversation partner. And in a post-summit interview with Chris Wallace of Fox News,
"May I give this to you to look at, sir?"
he brushed off a copy of Mueller's latest indictment.
Here? Should we be expecting more meddling by Russia, and are we prepared to deal with it?
Yes and no. The answers to those questions, the Russians will absolutely continue to meddle. Mr. Trump has not acknowledged the 2016 attack on the election and certainly has not pushed back to the point that would make Russia back off and not do these things. And so absolutely Russia will continue to push up to that line. They're going to be careful not to push over it and force us to react. But I think we can expect that for sure.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.